Arkansas's historic bridges speak to us in different ways. To some, they sing. To some, they bang. To some, they whir. They stand as a testament to a time when practicality was a union of strength and beauty. To an artist, the bridges connect the present to the past, and people to a community and a sense of place.
Of course, everybody knew Dr. Wallace and all this. He rode a horse.
To the Arkansas Highway Department, the bridges are important pieces of historical architecture in need of preservation. To towns defined by their gateways, they can be a boon or sometimes a boondoggle. The symbolism, the value, and the day-to-day of the historic bridges of Arkansas.
In 1987, the federal government enacted a law that stated that all highway departments had to evaluate all their bridges in their states to determine if they were eligible for the National Register. In the last couple of years, we looked at the number of metal trusses left in the state and compared that with what we originally inventoried. And what we found was that over half of that original inventory number that we looked at were gone. The Arkansas Historic Bridge Photography Project was started in the summer of 2003. We hired Maxine Payne from Hendrix, the Associate Professor of Arts there, to photograph all our historic bridges in the state. And she set out in the car one morning on I think it was a bright May Monday, and promptly came back with poison ivy on Friday and a snake story for every bridge. I'm not sure that she had counted on all that when she started, but she was a real trooper.
And so what happens is Robert gives me this huge list of bridges with these numbers assigned to them. And then he gives me this big map and it has red dots all over it. And he says, go photograph these bridges. My grandfather was a bridge builder, and my father and my brother, and I thought it was a great way to sort of try to understand some of what they experienced as bridge builders and sort of the history behind building bridges and what those things meant to communities. I just thought it was a great opportunity to have access to that information. You're going to have to crawl in the water and up embankments and down embankments and dodge traffic and dodge, you know, landowners with heavy artillery. You know, I think the Springfield Des Arc Bridge is absolutely beautiful. It's in a beautiful setting. I called it the Mosquito Bridge because it was just horrible. I must have photographed it 5 times, and every time it was just, you know, mosquitoes would just swarm me. Big hole. So delicate looking and so slender. Uncharacteristic of a normal bridge, you know. Looks like it's suspended almost, like a spider web. The Friar Ford Bridge in the old town of Salgahachia, I think, is one of the most peaceful settings and beautiful bridges that I photographed. It's interesting to think about how the town would have depended on the bridge and what it would have meant to them. It's the oldest functioning or used bridge in the state. You know, I really love the entrance and the exit because the road curves in both directions. And I think that sort of presents this sort of potential when you can't see the end of the road. I like the wrought iron bridges, especially that are in areas that are very isolated and sort of nestled into the landscape, where you're driving down a road and you just see this structure that almost becomes part of the landscape. And you know, perhaps that was never really the intention of the designer or the community, but over time they've sort of blended into the environment in a way that's very natural, very unlike a lot of contemporary structures that we build now. You know, there's so many beautiful bridges, and a lot of them you can't even tell from the road. You just pass them up because there's nothing on the sides of the road until you jump down in the ditch and look at the side of it. So they're very soft-spoken bridges. I really like the stacked rock bridges that the WPA built. The Mulladay Hollow Bridge has a beautiful curve in it, and it's very much nestled into this landscape that is so quaint. It really is a natural extension of the landscape. Such care to detail the beautiful icebreakers that are in those bridges. You can imagine the wildlife being comfortable sort of in that environment and utilizing it for a home, you know, like birds nest in it. The Judsonia Bridge feels a bit more industrial, basically because of the river that it spans. It's much wider, more barren, and it has a railroad bridge that runs parallel to it. The railroad bridges are often very gorgeous, very industrious looking. But the Judsonia Bridge, for some reason to me, I guess because of the width of it, the span that it goes across, seems more masculine, I guess, to me. The bridges were often, this structure that sort of solidified for a lot of people a sense of place. It identified, where people were from. Here, let's walk to the other end. Do you mind?
Not a bit.
A great example of people who are rooted to a place based on a bridge is Miss Eloise Wallace's story.
Okay.
How many grandkids are there?
This is Wallace Bridge. Let's see. It's on Wallace Road out of Highway 60 south, and it's over Fush-La-Fay River. The bridge was named after my father-in-law, Dr. Charles Wallace. Doctor was a farmer, but he was a doctor. And he rode Old Tony, his horse, all through these mountains here, and out past number 7, way on up into Hollis almost. And he'd go to sleep, and Old Tony would bring him home. He'd just ridden him so much. So he finally, when they got the bridge in, and he bought him a car. So, of course, they all 9 kids and whatever grandkids they had piled on the car, and they started down the hill. They had a man here to teach him how to drive. And they started off down the hill, and he turned the car over, and the kids went everywhere. Nobody was hurt. And he just dusted off his hands, and that was it. He got out of the car and got on Old Tony and went back to doctoring everybody.
How did people pay him then?
Chickens or eggs or whatever.
Whatever they had.
Or it didn't make any difference whether they had anything or not. He'd go anyway.
Let's stop here and look down the...
Okay.
Is this okay, or does this make you nervous walking on it? It makes me nervous.
But I got used to it. I hadn't been up here in 20-something years.
All right, are you cold?
No, I'm making it fine.
So just face my camera there, okay?
Okay.
Your hair looks so pretty.
Well, it better. But I thought I could brought my husband's picture and got him in on it.
I learned a lot, not just about bridges or a bridge that day, but just about what life was like growing up in that very rural community before electricity and all of the conveniences that we have. How they lived off the land and how important the river was to them. Did you ever eat any turtle or frog?
Oh, yeah. Turtle, has 5 different kinds of meat.
Well, I've heard that.
And we made patties, ground it up, made patties out of it, and fried them. I think I told you, though, that I watched this sweet gum out here at the end of the bridge grow from a sapling. We used to come over here and stay in this cabin during the summer and do our melons, because, you couldn't leave them. The kids would steal you blind.
The kids would steal your melons?
We knew that they got melons. They'll come up and tell me about it now. But we knew they got some, and he didn't care. But he'd give them melons.
How about a Cave City? That's where I'm from, that area. Those are good melons.
Yeah. We all have to be from somewhere, don't we?
We all got to be from somewhere.
I don't think I've ever been to Cave City.
Oh, it's a pretty little town.
What town is it close to?
Batesville.
Batesville. Well, I have then.
The number of historic bridges in Arkansas is dwindling every year, and leaving one in place or moving it is considered by all as preservation. But I think preservation sometimes can be even earlier in the process with our maintenance on these bridges that would keep the bridges in use longer, so we don't have to get to the point where we need to replace the bridge. When a bridge is slated for replacement, we have a number of alternatives that we look at before the bridge is replaced. The first things we do is our engineers get together and we try to decide whether we can leave the bridge in place as it is and not do anything with it. Most of the time, that's not possible, because if the bridge is up for replacement, there's something wrong. So what we'll do is we'll do what's called marketing a bridge, and that's when I will send a letter out to county judges, to mayors, historic societies, and tell them that we have a bridge that we want to replace. A good example of that is a bridge called the Boggy Creek Bridge from the city of Mena. Since it was a small bridge, we sent the letter to Mena, and Mena sent a letter back saying, well, we have a park that we're building, and we would like to put that bridge over a creek on the exit of the park. So we went through the process of finding out, would this work? Could we pick the bridge up and move it, in a cost-effective manner? What can Mena do to make it happen? What can we do to make it happen?
Some of the old landmarks that are here, are just kind of like family, like the little bridge down there. It was just part, you don't think anything about it. It's there every day until it's gone. Me and my brother rode bicycles, of course, when we were kids, and we'd come off the hill on the other side of the bridge just as hard as we could pedal. And at that time, there was little cracks between the runners. Well, if you didn't hit it just right, if your bicycle wheel dropped between them two boards, you went end over end across the bridge, and that happened more than once. You go skipping across the bridge on your belly and have to come home, Mama picked the creosote splinters out of you, and that was not fun. I don't think they could have found a better use for it. I think the city and the area will get a lot of benefit out of it, as well as the historical part of, saving that part of it. But it's just there that people can enjoy the old architectural, the workmanship that's put into that thing.
We picked the bridge up, we put the bridge on the back of a semi, and we drove it 13 miles to the park and picked it back up and put it down where Mena wanted it. So the city of Mena got a brand new bridge, and we placed a historic bridge in a new place and kept its historic integrity.
Where it's at now, with all of the use and the fatigue that it's gone through, it's in a very good spot. Very good spot.
One of the reasons we preserve bridges in Arkansas is to preserve the architectural history of the state. And these bridges were built many years ago under different circumstances than we build bridges today. The bridges we build today are built for economy and for ease of use. When it comes to bridges in communities and the way they affect or feel about the bridges, you've got different views from different places. A bridge like Beaver in northwest Arkansas, the bridge over the White River there, they love that bridge. It's part of their community, and they want to keep it there.
When you say Beaver, you think the bridge. When you say the bridge, you think of Beaver. And our town wants to protect it, wants to save it, wants to use it, but also they respect it, and they know that sometimes what's best for everybody is not always easy to find. You face people that move here that want to get away from the hustle and the bustle, but yet they want progress. They want to have bigger trucks to come in for their businesses. So they want to bring some of the stuff that they were leaving to come here. So you have to, balance, and that's going to be the key, is to balance.
The reason we've programmed a job to replace the Beaver Bridge is that the Beaver Bridge is a one-lane structure that was built with certain tonnages in mind. So it's currently set for 10 tons. A vehicle that goes across it shouldn't be more than 10 tons. You've had vehicles larger than 10 tons go across it in the past, and that's actually caused some damage to the bridge.
The Beaver Bridge is also known as the Little Golden Gate Bridge. It's also known as the Bridge to Nostalgia, where you always are going to find friends.
The bridge is going to stay in place. The community there likes their bridge. They feel like it's a part of their community.
Interesting, because the bridge moves with it.
The bridge moves, yeah. Gotta be careful.
I've never seen it.
The first thing that gives me my sense of place is the bridge. When you drive over the bridge, you've come home. You gotta slow down. When a wind comes up, the leaves in the trees sing to you. When you go over the bridge, that old guy sings to you. It's a wonderful feeling. There is music and movement in that bridge. My grandkids have been going across this bridge with me. Jamie's 10, and he's been going across since he was little. And our youngest, we've got Jamie 10, Kelby 7, Nicole 5, Ian and Nathan, and Ian's a year and a half. And Ian's already saying, "Mommy, bridge," because he knows that the bridge is going to talk to him. And what does the bridge say, And so I always say when we go over the bridge, what the bridge says to them. Thump, bump, thump, bump. How are you today? Thump, bump, thump, bump. Did you come to play? Thump, bump, thump, bump. Have a wonderful day. And they just think that's wonderful. That bridge is their old friend. I mean, where else can they go that some piece that they drive over is an old friend? Where can they get that feeling about life anymore? No. You get on the freeway and you're strapped in and you hide. They slow down and go over a bridge that talks to them.
The Beaver Bridge is a suspension span. It is the last one constructed in the state, and it is the final evolution of that design in the state of Arkansas. The bridge will stay in place. How it stays in place is in the process of being determined.
I can remember in 1923, we crossed on the ferry up here, and there wasn't a 5 and dime store in Biscoe, and we had to come over to the Bluff see the Christmas shop, and that was a big outing for us kids. It was a big deal, you know what I mean, where you wouldn't have to come up there and wait for the ferry to come back across, and you could just come on the bridge and pay your toll. Of course, we was all big-eyed, crossing on the bridge.
Back in the early part of the 20th century, primarily in the 1920s, this was one of 4 big steel truss bridges that were constructed over the Arkansas River. It's a through truss, a steel through truss bridge. It has a center span, which is the lift span, and then on either side of that is another through truss approach span. Those of us who worked in cultural resources would certainly like to preserve all we can, but sometimes you just can't do it. I'm sure there were people who would dearly love to have saved this bridge, and were it possible, we would have done so.
I was born and raised here in Devall's Bluff and spent the better part of my life here. I have a lot of fond memories of the bridge. Many times, you know, we were jumping off that thing and doing things we probably shouldn't have been doing, but all interesting parts of growing up with the bridge. The bridge did make a nice sort of an ominous, like a woo-woo sound when you're going across. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, it definitely had a unique sound to it because of the grooves in the bridge. I know twice during my lifetime it was actually struck by barges, and that presented a big problem because we have some of the kids in Biscoe that would come to school here, and instead of a 10-minute trip over to Biscoe, now that became a 30-mile round trip, and so it presented a lot of problems getting the school kids back and forth. Also, the bridge was notorious for being very slick in the rain. If you were ever coming across that bridge and made the mistake of hitting your brakes at the wrong time, then you were in for a nasty little spill across there.
When you went to talk to the people at Devall's Bluff, they loved the bridge, but they were always worrying that bridge was going to get hit again and to be closed down again. And they really wanted a bridge that was all weather all year with no chance for damage. You know, some bridges are welcomed additions to a town. Some bridges are seen as a boondoggle, actually.
The barges, originally, they were quite small and manageable because you've got quite a broad span there to get a relatively small barge through. Now the barges are what? 3/4, a half a mile long, and I don't know how many feet wide, 60, 80 feet. The distance between the sides of the barge and the spans on the bridge is, these days, rather small. So you've got a very, very tiny target to hit with a great, big, heavy barge. I remember talking to the lift operators, and they were telling about one time they were in the powerhouse, which is on the top of the lift span, and they were up on top of the bridge when the barge hit, and they were not happy. And they got down very quickly, as you can imagine.
Well, we knew it was going to hit because the river was real swift. It wasn't lined up right. Yeah. It was way over to the east too far. And when it come under, it hit the pier, and then it broke loose. We had one life jacket. I told a friend was in the doghouse with me to grab the life jacket, so he did and put it around him. It was doing this now a bunch of times. It would go way over then back, swaying back and forward, and finally it quit. And we could hear the iron crackling, you know, and twisting. And I told George to hold on. We grabbed each other and held on. It was like 35 below that night, and the ice was about 1.5 inches thick on the bridge. Couldn't climb down the bridge. Couldn't even stand up on it. He was scared to death. Well, I was too, but he was really scared. And to this day, he wouldn't hardly come across this bridge. I hate to see it go, but it's time for it to go. It really is.
That was a real nostalgic blast this morning, I'll say. I think people are going to miss it a lot more now that it's gone than they probably realized. Definitely very sad.
I'll miss the thing to a certain extent. But we got a good one in the place of it, so I guess, you know, it's progress. You can't stop progress.
It would utterly break my heart if they destroyed Cotter Bridge. To me, it is Cotter, more than the school or the railroad or the old gymnasium. It symbolizes Cotter to me. I guess I love it, maybe I love it so good because my dad did. He worked on it when he was a young man. And see, that was the first work project, public works project in this area. And that's the first time a lot of men had ever worked outside the home. When I was a little girl, I really admired the older people, kids in the community that went out Sunday evening, they'd go down and pose on Cotter Bridge. And I'd look at those pictures and I'd think, oh, I just can't hardly wait till I get old enough to do that. But I never did. I'm happy when I be down there and look up at that bridge and hear the cars, you know, making that bang, bang, bang as they come across each section. I love the lights on the bridge now. That's so beautiful up there on top of the hill or from the other bridge. And I wonder what people who's never been through here before, when they come down that hill going to the new bridge and they look across there and see the Rainbow Arch Bridge and the railroad bridge and all, and see the little town. I just wonder what they think. Oh, my daddy he was such a great writer, and he had such a way with words. I mean, it's kind of like in the Bible. With just a few words, he can really get the picture across. And I can just imagine, when I read it both times, I said, well, folks, here's your bridge already, as fine as you'll ever see, as a structure of youth and beauty. A monument it will be. To the ones who have been its builders and the ones who have put it through, to them the praise and the honor, the credit is certainly due. The bridge in its sublime dignity bows its head from azure blue. To our efficient highway commission and the construction engineers too, to Judge Ruffin and the governor, to the contractor and all the rest, each one has worked like blazes. They tried to do their best. My friends, in your celebration, drop a tear for the lives that were lost, and remember the money that built the bridge was the very least of the cost. On it were spent 2 precious lives, for which no one can repay. Remember them and the workman's toll on your celebration day. Dedicated to those who built the Cotter Bridge, Herbert A. Messick. Well, they picked the very right spot for it. God made the spot and man had enough good sense to pick it out. Because I have never seen a man-made structure that looks like it fits as much as Cotter Bridge does.
It's a one-of-a-kind bridge for the state and maybe for the region, and the people there love the bridge. It's a part of their community. It's just as much part of Cotter as the people that live there. That bridge was the first one we rehabilitated in the state. It had gotten to the point where we had to do something with it. The traffic couldn't go across it. So we went in and ripped out the decks, all the balustrades, and probably 50% of the concrete on the bridge. We replicated it, put it back the way it was, and we got a stronger bridge that can handle the traffic now. So it's a great example of a rehabilitation.
Okay, I'd like to first of all take this opportunity to welcome everybody that's come here today to the rededication of the R.M. Ruthven Bridge.
I didn't dream that it'd be that big a deal. I really didn't. Got down there and there was all those people and all those dignitaries, and I thought, well, I hope I'm dressed up and fixed up good enough, and I guess I was. Anyway, nobody didn't throw rocks at me. So I was really proud to get to read my daddy's poem. And I could look out in the crowd and see my nephew holding his little girl, and it was just really a special moment because, you know, I thought about my dad. And I ended up then, I said, well, I'll end this like I begun and say, well, folks, here's your bridge already. And then that's when they cut the ribbon and opened it up. And the Civil War cannons began to boom. I looked out and I thought about my daddy, and I thought, you know, I believe he's here in spirit. And as I read every word that he wrote, I thought about him. and about all the ones that had worked on the bridge, and what a marvelous monument they left for us. And I hope we keep it till the end of time.